Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have a bunch of things to talk to you about today. We are going to be diving into two pieces of legislation that are going down right now here in the state of California, one on IVF, one on schools and mental health care facilities and all of that. And then we are going to talk about a Supreme Court case that we are excited the Supreme Court is taking up. It's a freedom of speech case, but it dives into a lot more than that. And so we will wrap up with that. But first, Greg, do you have a fun coffee or anything today?
No coffee. I already had 2 cups, but I do have my hint of the day. Some blackberry. And so drinking lots of water today.
There we go.
I had coffee already.
We're going to end up being sponsored by Hint with all your Hint drinks on the podcast.
Yeah, so it's the only drink I like at the moment.
Enough. And I'm the same way. I've had lots of coffee today already, so just have my water now to catch up on that. But Greg, IVF, this is California Family Council. We've put out a statement on IVF in the past when there was a lot going down with what was happening with IVF in Alabama. We have had Katie Faust with them before us, and she does a phenomenal job talking about IVF, what is really happening with IVF. We've had her on webinars that you can find at californiafamily.org. We've had her on some podcast episodes. And IVF, I think, is something that a lot of Christians don't really understand, how IVF actually works, how the industry works. And many, I think, can perceive it as IVF is a pro-life thing, and it's not, unfortunately. And we have now seen a new IVF bill, AB 547. And Greg, what is that bill doing in regards to IVF?
Well, IVF, in vitro fertilization. For those of you who aren't familiar with this is a process where eggs from a woman are harvested, taken out, and same with the sperm, and put together in a petri dish, and fertilization happens outside the womb. And then those same eggs are fertilized eggs. The fertilization has happened, right? And those are put back into a woman. It could be the woman that the eggs came from. It could be a surrogate, someone who is hired to have a child for someone else. That is big business here in California. But the problem with this process is typically these eggs are fertilized, but they fertilize far more eggs than they actually use. And so there are these little human beings who are discarded, or they're frozen, and you can actually freeze a little human being who has been started after conception, and they can be suspended. There are up to several million of these frozen babies in refrigerators. They're either, if parents don't want to pay to keep them, they're discarded, or they're used for science experiments. So you can imagine what happens to the value of life. I mean, here at the California Family Council, and I believe if you call yourself pro-life, what that means is that you think human beings begin their lives. We all begin our lives at conception. That's when our existence began. That's when we start. We start to grow. All of our DNA is there, and we are in process of growing in our mother's womb. And then we're born and we get old, and that's the whole life process. And human beings are made in God's image, and human beings are valuable, and we don't change in value based on our location nor in our size, right? Bigger human beings are more valuable than smaller human beings, which, if we're going to be logically consistent, that means once conception happens, that is a valuable human being that needs to be treated with dignity and respect. The IVF process, as practiced here in the United States, does not honor the human life that's being created, and that's because they're discarded. Actually, we've heard there are more babies lost to in vitro fertilization than are lost to abortion. The typical way you abort a baby once the baby's implanted and either forced out with a chemical abortion or through surgical abortion. And so what's been happening is we got a lot of conservative Republicans um, talking about pro-life Republicans that we did generally agree with. Many of them are now coming out in favor of IVF. President Trump he wants to lower the prices. And so last year here in California, they passed a law to mandate that insurance cover all IVF treatments, and these treatments are very expensive. They're like 20,000 to 30,000 each time you do it, and it's the rate of success is fairly low. So you usually have to do it several times before it works. And so this particular bill, AB 547, is going to give a tax credit to anyone. So if your insurance doesn't cover it all, and you spend extra money, that money you can get a tax credit based on the extra money that you spend. So your tax bill will be lower. And so this is being introduced by a fairly brand new legislator who we love and like. And we've talked with and told them that we're going to have to come out against this, and nothing personal, but you know, we're going to disagree with you on this particular piece of legislation. His name is David Tanquipa from the Fresno area, and yeah, that bill has a hearing on next Monday, and so we'll be put in a letter of opposition, and we're encouraging other folks to call as well.
Yes, and so if you head over to the California Family Instagram page or the Facebook page, you will see more information about this piece of legislation. You'll see the call and campaign, and to call the committee, it's in. Again, that's this coming Monday, March 17th. And so we have listed out the committee member names as well as their phone numbers. So it's super easy to make those calls, urge a no vote on it. We put plenty of information that you can use for talking points. And want to emphasize what you said, Greg, about this is a legislator that's a new one that we really like, that he has we see good ideas coming out of him so far, and this just really shows and affirms that at California Family Council our allegiance is to no person and it's to no political party. It's to God and God alone. It's the Bible and Bible alone. We're a nonpartisan Christian organization, and so whether it is a legislator that we align with on 99% of things or we align with on 1% of things, if they do something that we believe aligns with our biblical values, we will support it, we will celebrate it. And even if it's a legislator we agree with 99% of the times, but they're doing something we don't believe aligns with the Bible and where we stand as an organization, we will also come out and oppose it. And so I think this is a really great example that we will celebrate and support the good things that are biblically aligned and oppose the opposite.
Right. And that should be the example of every person, right? We should not be, we have bound ourselves to Christ, right? Not to a political party. So sometimes I think when you become part of a political party, you think, well, I don't want to speak out against my friend because then people won't like him. But what you're doing is but even if they're doing something that is immoral, that you think violates the Bible, we are all obligated to stand up for the truth and righteousness, even if it happens to be our friends that are doing the wrong thing. And so, you do it in love, but you stand up and you say the truth and you try and persuade. So we're gonna have a debate. This is a very good debate to have. We go around saying we believe we value life from conception to natural death. Well, if that's the truth, then we don't freeze people and we don't discard people, right? We wouldn't do that to live human beings. So you can't do that to little itty bitty human beings. So.
Absolutely. And so that was IVF. The next bill we have AB 322 by Assemblymember Chris Ward. And this bill, it has to do with school-based health services, school-based mental health services. And, sometimes you think, oh, yeah, that's really great that schools have like mental health services. Greg, what is this bill really doing, and what is the situation with the mental health services?
Well, we've seen. Listen, kids are in trouble. More and more, we are hearing about suicide rates going up, kids struggling with depression and anxiety more than they ever have. And you got to ask the question, why is that? Why are kids struggling so much? And sometimes we think, well, if they're struggling, what do they need? Mental health care. And you just blanketly think, yeah, just send them to a counselor. But you have to ask, okay, now, first of all, why are they distressed? Is there anything they're being told that's distressing them? Is anything changed in culture that's distressing them? And what is the mental health professional saying to them? Are they offering them real help? Right? We can't just simply assume that doesn't matter who the health professional is, they got a degree, so they must know what they're doing. I think we need to be very skeptical about our healthcare especially our mental health care professionals, because they are required by law to affirm something that really does violate reality, violates the biblical morality. It violates what most people think about the nature of who a human being is. And we're talking about gender. Uh, Here in California, if a kid is struggling with his gender identity, meaning he doesn't feel like the sex he actually is, and this is not unusual now because kids are told from an early age at school that gender is something everybody gets to pick, and you get to pick not just between male and female. There's an unlimited number of genders that every kid could be, and so you have every kid searching their feelings to figure out what gender they are. You can imagine how unstable this would make any kid who is insecure about themselves. And I think it is my theory that this gender ideology that is being taught in schools is what is making kids more insecure than ever. You're teaching them that their feelings dictate reality. And so as kids are struggling more and more, what is the legislature doing? Right? They're not thinking, well, maybe are we doing something that's causing this problem? That doesn't even enter their mind. What they're doing instead is simply, hey, we need more mental health care workers right at the schools themselves. Now you think, well, what would be wrong with that? Well, here in California, once a kid reaches the age of 12, we're talking usually sixth grade, right? The elementary school, junior high age, they can consent to their own mental health care. That means they can see a counselor, and the parents are completely left in the dark. They don't have to consent. They don't have to know who is counseling. It's all private. That's what California law says once a kid reaches age 12. So so now typically if when healthcare professionals are outside the school, it's mostly parents know when a kid is going to a healthcare provider because they have to drive them. But if you have counselors, psychologists, people doing mental health care right on campus, you are not going to know what kind of advice your young kid who might be struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, you have no idea what they're being told. You have no idea how to evaluate and help your kid assess whether the advice they're getting is good or bad. We think this is really bad. Although, and it's making it very hard for Republicans to oppose mental health care when they know kids are struggling so much. But nobody is asking is what is the kind of health care they're receiving actually helping the kids. So our position is no kid should get any kind of counseling outside of the parents' knowledge and consent. Parents should be the ones deciding who the counselor is and what is actually said in the counseling meeting. And they should be in full control because especially people with different backgrounds are going to give different advice to kids on how to be happy, right? Um, because how to be happy is all dependent on your worldview, and so that's what's happening. This is another bill, AB 322, that is expanding mental health care services and healthcare services into the schools themselves, and so we are opposing this, even though we seem to be one of the few organizations doing so, and so far there has been no opposition besides a Moms for Liberty group that's also bringing up issues regarding the same thing.
And so, where abouts is this bill at in the legislative process, Greg?
It just passed the Education Committee with no opposition, Assembly Education. So now it's going to go on to the floor, and then it'll flip back to the Senate.
And so we will be getting out information to you all about who to call, but because it's going to be heading to the assembly floor, you can call your local assembly member and urge them to vote no on this bill, AB 322. But you'll see
That's
more
right.
on our social media and on our website and our bill watch list. That's all at californiafamily.org or California Family Council on Facebook and Instagram. And so those are kind of the two main bills we wanted to catch you guys all up on today. There is so many bills on our bill watch list. So again, please head to californiafamily.org. Check out the bill watch list. We have call-in campaigns going on our website. You can check those out. And you can read more in depth about different pieces of legislation on our blog. That is all, again, at californiafamily.org. And Greg, we now see a Supreme Court case that is coming out of the state of Colorado, state not too far from us here in California, and a state that we've kind of seen turn blue, kind of follow suit with the things California has been doing. And this is a freedom of speech case, similar to ideas we've also seen pushed in California. But this is, again, it's the state of California, and it's against a licensed professional counselor. And Greg, what happened with this licensed professional counselor?
Right. Well, this is a Christian counselor that advertises herself as a Christian counselor, and people come to her to get a Christian perspective on the struggles they're having. And so if they're struggling with unwanted same-sex attraction, if they're struggling with gender confusion, and then they can go to this particular counselor, and she'll walk them through the process and help them with their unwanted feelings, and help them deal with their associated behaviors, or help them change their feelings. And now this kind of help is illegal. It's illegal in Colorado for minors. So a licensed counselor cannot provide any type of counseling that would, they call it conversion therapy, which doesn't, it's a misnomer. What that means is any help you provide someone to help them change their same-sex attraction or behaviors, or to change their gender feelings or gender identity, to help them accept their own sex or body, that is illegal counseling to offer to minors. That same law is in effect here in California. That was passed like 10 years ago. So if you send your minor to a licensed counselor here in California, they cannot. They can only tell your child one thing. If they're struggling with same-sex attraction, all they can say, help them do, is to accept themselves as gay or lesbian or transgender. That they cannot help them. They can't help them with these unwanted same-sex attractions, and they can't help them with unwanted gender confusion. So that's the law. And so what's happening? So what does this mean? That means that the government is regulating private conversations. The words you hear, the words your kids are allowed to hear in a private conversation that they want to have. That's how crazy this is. So that violates freedom of speech. You're simply trying to regulate private conversations. You're telling a counselor who is licensed they can't say certain words to another child. Why? Why? Because they say it's incredibly dangerous. It's even torture to tell a kid that he can change either his behavior or his same-sex attraction. Well, that's ridiculous because lots and lots of people are former lesbians, former gays, former transgendered identified people. There are tons of people who used to be one way and now are not, and they weren't tortured to death, right? And so it's a ridiculous. We've been fighting this for a long time. They tried to outlaw this type of counseling for adults about 5 years ago. The bill was AB 2943. It was actually pulled at the very end. So if this bill is now going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to decide whether a state can actually tell a private counselor the words they can say in a private context. And here's what they're arguing: is if we license you, then your words are no longer speech. Your words are conduct, and we can regulate conduct. Right. So all the government has to do to regulate your actual words that you can say is declare that your words are actually conduct and not speech, and therefore they can ban them. And that's what they've done here in California and about 23 different states. And so this bill is going to the Supreme Court now. It'll be argued at the probably end of this year in October, with a decision probably next spring or early summer. And we are anticipating the fact that they actually took up the case is a very positive step. If they didn't think there was a problem with this law, then they wouldn't have picked up the case. So we feel very positive that this is going to knock down all laws regulating counselor speech. And if so, that will make a huge difference in this state and states around the country.
Absolutely. And I just want to also reiterate and make sure you guys all really understood that with this Supreme Court case, with what this licensed professional counselor in Colorado is trying to do is, one, it's clear that many people go to her because they share the same faith background and they want to have therapy and counseling in that. Two, the state is saying that if a young boy comes to her and says, hey, I am dealing with some issues and I don't feel like I'm in the right body and things like that, she has every right to tell the boy, okay, you're a girl then, and let's get you on that medication and let's talk about the best process to do that. But she's not allowed to affirm his actual biological sex. And
right.
So it's such a one-way thing, especially if, and this even still remains the same as if that boy comes to her and says, hey, I'm not feeling super comfortable in my body. I think I'm dealing with some gender dysphoria, but I know I'm a boy, and how can you help me work through this, and how can we figure out where this is stemming from, and I want to feel comfortable in my body. She can't say, okay, perfect, yeah, this is how we make sure you don't feel like this, and let's walk through why this is happening. No, she's not allowed to do that. That's what they're trying to say in the state of Colorado. And so, as Greg said, they'll probably hear this at by the end of this year. We'll probably get some results in around springtime of 2026, we're thinking. So it's going to be a little bit before we get things, but you guys will continue to hear about this, I'm sure, in the news. If there's any updates or things like that, we will also keep you guys updated. But there is so much happening across the nation and in the state of California nonstop. And so continue to stay up to date with the podcast. Visit californiafamily.org and sign up for our newsletter. So you'll get once a week an email letting you know what is happening here in California legislatively, what's happening maybe at school boards, what's happening with sports, bunch of different things. And before we let you guys leave, don't forget to come to the California March for Life. That is on Monday, March 31st at the California State Capitol. And we are hoping, we get to talk to you guys over email. We get to talk to you guys over the podcast and on social media. We are hoping to actually get to meet you guys in person. So come up to the state capitol, come March for Life. If you visit californiafamily.org, you'll see the 2025 March for Life tab with all information about the speakers, the timing. But we hope to see you all there.